My studio savings evaporated in 27 minutes. My signature was on 3 checks I never wrote. The next morning, my mother emailed the entire family. She's having mental issues. Please be patient. I expected to be crushed at the preliminary hearing, but then my grandfather, the one in the wheelchair, looked straight at them, unlocked a secret that silenced the courtroom, and then he stood up. My name is Holly James. For 4 years, every freelance check, every wedding gig, every rushed corporate headshot session went toward one thing, Marvo Light Works. It was not just a name I'd registered with the state. It was the physical lease deposit on a small loft space, the light stands, the seamless backdrops, the high-resolution printers. It was my entire 32-year-old life bundled into a high-yield savings account at Harbor Crest Bank. It was my 4-year plan. Coming due. The notification started at 10:03 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was on my floor cleaning lenses for a shoot the next morning. My phone, plugged in across the room, lit up. A ding. Transaction approved. Before I could stand up, another ding. Transaction approved. Ding. 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 It was not the single, expected ding of an auto payment. This was a cascade, a digital waterfall of my money going somewhere I had not authorized. I lunged for the phone, my thumb slipping on the glass as I unlocked it. A wall of text alerts. Harbor Crest. Harbor Crest. Harbor Crest. 14 point-of-sale transactions. Ventnor's Reserve. Nordstrom. Best Buy. Celadon Home. I scrolled, my heart climbing into my throat. The numbers added up. I did the math 3 times. $10,000 gone in 27 minutes. My stomach inverted. $10,000. That was the deposit for the West Loft space. That was the equipment bond. That was everything. My brain scrambled for an explanation. Hacked, skimmed. But the transactions were all point of sale. They required a PIN. My PIN. Only I knew that PIN. And then the memory hit me, cold and sharp. 3 days ago, my mother, Ruth, was standing in my apartment doorway. She wore her practice look of minor, dignified crisis. Holly, darling, my car just declined at the market. The machine must be fussy. Such an embarrassment. Can I borrow yours just for essentials? I'll pay you back tomorrow as soon as I call the bank. Essentials. She'd promised to bring it back the next day. She never had. I jammed my keys into the ignition of my beat-up sedan, the phone already pressed hard against my ear. The Harbor Crest automated menu was a special kind of hell. For English, press 1. I mashed the 0 key until a human being, weary and procedural, picked up. Harbor Crest Fraud Department. This is Anita. My voice was tight. Hi, my account has been drained. $10,000 in the last half hour. I'm looking at the alerts right now, Nordstrom, Best Buy. Something called Ventnor's Reserve. The sound of typing, a long, terrible pause that stretched for miles. Anita said, her voice shifting from helpful to contractual, we are seeing those transactions, but the physical card was present for all 14 purchases, and the correct PIN was entered every time. I was driving too fast down the Riverton Causeway, the lights of the city blurring. But I have my card. Wait. I ripped open my wallet. Knowing what I'd find, it was not there. Of course, it was not there. That's impossible, I lied, the word tasting like ash. It must have been stolen. You have to reverse the charges. More typing. I am not seeing a stolen card report on your file. And I'm also seeing a history of informal authorization on this account. My cheeks burned. What does that mean? It looks like, she read, in February, a similar transaction. $200 at a home goods store, reimbursed from a different account 30 days later. And last year, $500 at a catering supply. I cut her off. That was different. This is $10,000. I understand, but to the system, a pattern of shared access complicates the fraud claim. We can freeze the card, which I'm doing right now, but reversing the charges, given the PIN usage, it's very difficult. It may be considered a civil matter. A civil matter. The call disconnected in my brain. A disagreement, not theft, not the liquidation of my entire future. The drive from my apartment in the warehouse district to my parents' manicured suburban street in Willow Creek usually took 20 minutes. I made it in 12. Every red light was a personal insult. I peeled into my parents' driveway, the tires crunching on the gravel. I expected, I don't know, a crisis, a burglary, remorse. Instead, the house was blazing with light. Music, the soft clink of glasses drifted from the open windows. My father, Graham Holt, was on the porch holding court, gesturing with a cigar. The markets are just jittery, Tom. Jittery, he boomed. Tom Martin from the church council chuckled. They were hosting a dinner party on a Tuesday for their friends from the Beacon Ridge Fellowship. I walked in, the phone still hot in my hand. The smell of roasted lamb and expensive, heavy perfume hit me like a physical blow. My mother, Ruth, glided out of the kitchen, wearing a new silk blouse I did not recognize. Holly, what a complete surprise. Her smile was bright, brittle, a porcelain mask. She kissed the air near my cheek. We are just having dessert with the Martins. Apple tart tatin. I felt like an alien, like I had crash-landed in a performance. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A credit alert. My utilization rate had just jumped 30%. They were not just spending my savings. They were actively destroying my credit. Hi, Mrs. Martin. Pastor, I managed. My entire world was collapsing, and she was serving dessert. I scanned the room, the anxiety in my chest so tight I could barely breathe. I forced a smile that felt like broken glass, but I was not seeing the people, I was cataloging. My vision went sharp, photographic. The wine glasses they were holding. They were not the cheap, thick-lipped ones from Target they had used for years. They were Riedel, thin, delicate stems. New, Ms. Martin admired hers. Oh, Ruth, these are just divine. You always have the best taste. Only the best for our friends, my mother said, beaming, pointing to the dining table. The linen runner. It still had the faint crease of a boutique fold. And I could just see the edge of the tag, Celadon Home. That boutique downtown where I could not even afford the hand towels. New. And in the living room, where the old, wobbly console used to be, sat a brand new solid oak sideboard. Dark wood, brass fittings, easily $2,000. It was not just new, it was heavy. It spoke of permanence. They had bought it assuming they would keep it. My father was pouring drinks, not his usual blended whiskey. It was a single malt, a bottle I did not recognize. Dark amber, expensive label. You have to try this, Holly, he said. It's got a smoky finish that'll change your life. I looked at the amber liquid. I'm driving, I mumbled. My life was already changing. I stayed for 40 minutes. I accepted a glass of water I did not drink. I nodded about the weather, about the upcoming mission fund. Pastor Martin clapped my father on the back. Ruth and Graham have been so generous, leading the charge on the new fund. I nearly choked on my water. Generous? With whose money? The moment the Martins' headlights disappeared down the street, I locked the front door. The click of the deadbolt sounded unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet. My parents were collecting glasses, still flushed from the party. "Holly, you looked pale all night. Is everything all right?" my mother, Ruth, asked, not looking at me as she stacked plates. "My studio account is empty," I said, no preamble, no softness. My father paused mid-clink. My mother, however, laughed. A short, nervous puff of air. "What? Don't be dramatic. You probably misread the balance. You're always stressed about money." "I'm not stressed. I'm precise." $10,000 drained. 14 transactions starting at 10:03 p.m., while you were serving lamb. Ruth put a hand to her chest, mastering the look of shocked concern. "Oh, Holly. No, you must have been hacked. Those awful people online. You have to call the bank." "Graham, did you hear that? She was hacked. We must call the police." "Stop," I said. "Don't bother." "What do you mean, don't bother?" "This is a terrible crime," she insisted, her voice rising. "It is," I agreed. "And it was my physical card and my PIN." Her face froze for just a second, the performance fractured. "Well, I certainly don't have it," she snapped, her tone shifting to defensive. "I gave that back to you days ago. I remember placing it on your counter." A specific, visualized lie. "Where is your purse?" I asked. "What?" "Don't be rude. I'm cleaning up." I walked past her into the kitchen, where her designer bag, one I'd always suspected was a knockoff, but now was not so sure, sat on the counter. I did not wait for permission. I unzipped it. "Holly James, you stop this right now." I dumped the entire contents onto the granite island: lipstick, a church bulletin, a crumpled pack of tissues, a thick wad of receipts, and my Harbor Crest debit card. I held it up. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. She did not say anything. She just stared at the card as if it had betrayed her. I grabbed the clump of receipts: Best Buy, Ventnor's Reserve, Celadon Home, and the big one, Nordstrom. Dated today. Total $4,320. Item, men's chronograph, a watch. I looked at my father. He instinctively touched his bare wrist where the watch was not. He was waiting until tomorrow to wear it. The arrogance of it. Graham Holt cleared his throat. The genial host was gone. "Now, Holly, it's just a temporary loan. A misunderstanding." My mother seized on it. "Yes, exactly. A loan. We were going to tell you a loan," I repeated, my voice shaking, the adrenaline finally giving way to a cold dread. Precise rage. A loan requires asking. A loan doesn't involve buying luxury items in the middle of the night. You stole it. Don't you use that word in this house. Ruth shrieked, the mask completely gone. We needed it. There were expenses. Things you wouldn't understand. Expenses. I shot back, waving the receipts. Or a new console table, a $1,200 bar tab, a $4,000 watch. Graham stepped forward, trying to sound reasonable, paternal. We needed to maintain our position in the community. Holly, it's important. It's an investment. We'll pay you back next month. I promise. The lie was so blatant it stunned me. With what? I demanded, my voice loud now, echoing in their perfect, newly furnished living room. My pension. My savings. You're retired. You live on Social Security. You have nothing. The word nothing hung in the air. It was the truth we were never allowed to say. Ruth's face hardened. The victim vanished, replaced by the martyr. After all we've done for you, we raised you. We supported your little hobby. It's not a hobby, I seethed. It's my career. And you just set it on fire to buy a watch. I scooped my card off the counter and stuffed the receipts into my pocket. I walked to the door, my hand on the knob. I want the full $10,000 transferred back into my account by morning. And I want the watch and whatever else you bought that can be returned. I want the return receipts. Holly, you're hysterical, Ruth said, trying one last time for gaslight. You're confused. I am perfectly clear, I said, my voice dangerously calm. 9:00 a.m. If the money is not in my account, I am walking into the Riverton Police Department. I will give them the receipts. I will give them the card. I will tell them about the non-formal authorization that my bank is already flagging. I will show them the console table. And I will press charges for grand larceny and identity theft. My father looked pale. You wouldn't. We are your family. You stopped being my family when you signed my name, I said. I opened the door. 9 a.m. I walked out into the cold night air and didn't look back. 9 a.m. came and went. There was no vibration from my phone indicating a transfer. There was no apologetic text message, no sheepish voicemail. The silence from their house was absolute. My ultimatum had been treated as a tantrum. My threat, an empty gesture. My bluff had been called. I did not wait until 9:01. I was already in my car, parked outside the Alder Point precinct. The envelope of receipts was heavy on the passenger seat. The station smelled exactly as you'd expect, stale coffee, industrial disinfectant, and the faint metallic tang of institutional apathy. The fluorescent lights buzzed, a sound that drilled directly into my burgeoning migraine. I sat on a hard plastic bench for 45 minutes, watching officers process 2 shoplifters, and a man arguing about a parking ticket. Finally, a detective with a worn suit and a face that had seen too many domestic disputes called my name, Detective Miller. I sat across from his cluttered desk. I laid it all out, the bank app alerts, the time-stamped Nordstrom receipt for the $4,000 watch, the list of transactions. I explained the loan for essentials, the refusal to return the card, the dinner party. He listened, or pretended to. He tapped a pen against a chipped coffee mug. Miss James, he said, letting out a long, weary sigh. He nudged the receipts back toward me. This is messy. It's not messy, I said, my voice tight. It's theft. Grand larceny, identity fraud. That's $10,000. It's your mother, he countered, leaning back. You admit you've lent her the card in the past. I let her borrow it for groceries once for $200, which she paid back. This is my entire business savings. She took it under false pretenses and refuses to return it. That is a crime. He steepled his fingers, his expression shifting from bored to condescending. Here's the problem. You have a history of what we call implied authorization. You let her use it before, she had the physical card. She had the PIN. Proving criminal intent, proving she intended to defraud you versus just being catastrophically irresponsible. It's a he said, she said, and frankly, it's a civil matter. The phrase hung in the air, cold and sterile. A civil matter, he said. She said, I have the receipts. I have the bank statements, and she'll say you agreed to loan it to her, and are now having regrets. You need to take this to civil court. Sue them. Sue my own parents. The words felt foreign. Impossible. That's the venue for this kind of dispute, Miller said, already standing up, a clear dismissal. We don't have the manpower to adjudicate family loans. I'm sorry. I walked out of the precinct into the sharp morning light, my hands shaking. I felt contaminated. The system's first door had not just closed, it had been slammed in my face. If the police would not act, the bank had to. They were the ones who let the money go. I drove to the largest Harbor Crest branch downtown, bypassing the teller line and demanding to speak to the branch manager. The manager, a woman named Sarah with a sharp blazer and an even sharper practiced smile, led me into a glass-walled office. I repeated the entire story, the theft, the watch, the police report I had attempted to file. I am reporting these 14 transactions as fraudulent, I finished. I need an immediate chargeback. She typed for a long time. Her smile never wavered, but it became fixed, inorganic. She made a brief, quiet call. Ms. James, she said, hanging up. I've reviewed the file with our central fraud department. Unfortunately, we cannot honor the chargeback request. Why not? But I am telling you, as the account holder, that I did not authorize those purchases. Because the physical card was present for all transactions, she recited as if reading from a script, and the correct PIN was entered every single time. As far as our system is concerned, these were legitimate, authenticated purchases. But the informal authorization you mentioned last night. That was for $200, not $10,000. This is different to the system. Ms. James, a pattern is a pattern. You established a precedent of allowing this individual access to your funds. The amount is irrelevant to the authentication method. Your relationship with the person who used the card, that is, I'm afraid, a civil matter. There it was again. That same phrase, the institutional buck passing. The police said it was the bank's problem. The bank said it was a family problem. And I was the one left standing in the middle of the crater. I left the bank. The adrenaline rush of the confrontation draining away, leaving behind a cold, deep dread. Something the bank manager said, a pattern, triggered the memory of the credit alert I'd received during the party. I went back to my apartment. It felt different now, less like a home, more like a temporary shelter with a ticking clock. I sat on my sofa, opened my laptop, and paid the $20 fee to pull my full credit report from all 3 bureaus. I thought I was prepared. I was not. The report loaded, and I felt the blood drain from my face. It was not just the $10,000 from my savings, it was so much worse. 3 new credit cards had been opened in my name over the last 2 weeks. A Capital One Venture card, a Chase Sapphire, a Discover It card, all issued, all mailed to my parents' address in Willow Creek, and all of them were maxed out completely. One $2,500 charge at a high-end travel agency, one $5,000 charge at a jewelers, another $2,000 in online gift cards. But that was not the end of it. There, under installment loans, was a new entry, a personal signature loan, $15,000. Taken out 3 days ago from a high-interest online lender, the kind that advertises easy approval and crippling APRs. The funds had been deposited into a new checking account, also in my name. They had not just stolen my savings. They had stolen my entire identity. They had leveraged my good name to steal $30,000 more. My credit score, the number I had painstakingly cultivated since college. My pristine 780 was gone. A bright red warning flashed on the screen. My new score, 540. I was subprime. I was toxic. Before I could even process this new level of violation, my phone rang. The caller ID read Harbor Crest Business. It was Mark, my loan officer for the Marvo Lightworks studio. His voice, usually so buoyant and encouraging, was flat. Holly. Yeah? Hi. Listen, I'm glad I caught you. We ran the final credit check for the SBA underwriting this morning. And well, Holly, a lot of red flags just lit up the board. I stared at the peeling paint on my wall, unable to speak. Your debt-to-income ratio is completely inverted, he continued, the confusion clear in his voice. I'm seeing 3 maxed-out new cards and a $15,000 personal loan that were not on the pre-approval. Your score dropped over 200 points. I don't know what happened, but I cannot move this forward. The application is frozen indefinitely. I hung up without saying goodbye. The dream of Marvo Lightworks, 4 years of work, dissolved. The phone immediately rang again. Mr. Henderson, the landlord for the West Lofts. Holly, he said, his voice impatient. I'm sitting here with your unsigned lease agreement and no deposit check. That bank loan was supposed to clear today. What's the story? Mr. Henderson, I stammered, my mind racing, there's been a bank error, a major fraud alert. I just need a little more time to sort it out. He laughed, a dry, sharp sound. Time. This is Riverton. That loft space is prime real estate. I've got a microbrewery, and 2 tech startups waving cash in my face. I like you, kid, and I like your portfolio, but I'm running a business, not a charity. You have 7 days. Get me that $10,000 deposit in certified funds, or I'm signing the lease with someone else. He hung up. 7 days. I had maybe $400 in my personal checking account. The chain reaction was suffocating me. Money, credit, the studio, all gone. An email notification popped up on my laptop. It was from Taylor Rue Boutique, my biggest and most reliable client. The subject line was in all caps, wrong files. Holly, the email read, we are on a hard deadline for the fall catalog print run. You just sent us the link to the spring shoot proofs from 6 months ago. We need the final, retouched fall campaign files by end of day, or we are pulling the contract and initiating the penalty clause. What is going on over there? I sank to the floor, my laptop sliding onto the rug in my panic. In my frantic calls to the police and the bank, I had sent the wrong deliverables. I was failing. My reputation, the only thing I had left, was now cracking. I needed an ally. I needed someone to believe me. I called my cousin Sarah, the one I'd always been closest to. I started to explain, my voice cracking with the sheer weight of it all. She cut me off, her voice thick with a pity that felt like acid. Oh, Holly. Honey, your mom already called me this morning. My blood went cold. She what? She told me you were under an immense amount of stress about the new studio, Sarah said soothingly. She said you were getting a little confused, overwhelmed. She said you were making some wild accusations. She's just worried sick about you. Maybe you should just rest. Honey, it'll all look better tomorrow. Confused accusations. Stressed? They had not just stolen from me, they had preemptively poisoned the well. They were executing a narrative. The problem was not their crime, it was my reaction to their crime. I called my best friend from college. I got the same story. Hey, I talked to Ruth. She sounds so scared for you. She said you're not sleeping. Just take a deep breath. Maybe see someone. I was isolated. They had framed me as unstable. There was only one person left to call. The one person I had not spoken to in 3 years, my younger sister, Elise. Elise had cut our parents off entirely after her wedding. It was a brutal, scorched earth arrangement. My parents had told everyone she was ungrateful, volatile, and selfish, that she'd eloped out of spite. And I had believed them, or at least I had found it easier to believe them than to get involved. I found her new number in Portland, listed under her married name, Elise Hart. My hand trembled as I dialed. She picked up on the 4th ring. Elise Hart. Her voice was professional, guarded. Elise, it's Holly. A silence stretched between us, heavy with 3 years of accusation and abandonment. I could hear her breathing. Then she spoke, her voice flat, devoid of any surprise. So, she said, you finally got hit. What? What do you mean? The air left my lungs. My wedding, she said, her voice turning brittle. You remember how Mom and Dad were helping me manage the venue deposits? How they were so supportive. I remembered. They had complained about the cost, but acted the part of proud parents. $8,000, Elise said. My entire deposit for the arches, it just vanished. They borrowed it, Holly, to cover some of Graham's bad investments. They swore they'd pay it back before the due date. They never did. We lost the venue. We had to get married at the courthouse. But Mom said you changed your mind, I whispered, the pieces clicking into place with horrifying speed. She said you were impulsive, that you had a fight with the planner, and decided to elope. Of course she did, Elise scoffed, a bitter laugh. And when I confronted them, when I told them I was going to tell the whole family what they did, Mom called everyone. She called my fiancé's parents. She called our aunts. She called you. She told everyone I was having a mental breakdown. That I was unstable and imagining things because of the wedding stress. Unstable, stressed, confused, imagining things. It was the same script, the exact same words. This was not a mistake. This was not a desperate one-time loan. This was a blueprint. A long con perfected over years. Find a target, a daughter getting married. A daughter starting a business. Exploit their trust. Steal their future. And if they fight back, deploy the character assassination. My sister had been the trial run. I was the masterpiece. The call with Elise left me hollow. It was the echo that did it. The same script, the same tactics, the same words, unstable, stressed, confused, deployed 3 years apart with chilling precision. My entire life I had seen my parents as flawed, perhaps self-absorbed, but not as predators. Now I saw the blueprint. Elise was right. This was a pattern. And if it was a pattern, it had a beginning. I needed history. I needed leverage. The police and the bank had rejected my present. I had to go digging in the past. My first thought was my father's side, the Holts. They were a scattered, distant clan. I tried calling an old number for my paternal grandmother, but the line was disconnected. A quick online search confirmed what I vaguely remembered. She had passed away 2 years ago, in a nursing home in another state. My father had not mentioned it. There were no other relatives close enough to know the family's skeletons. That door was closed. That left only one other path. The source of the real power in the family, the one my mother always spoke of with a mixture of reverence and resentment, my maternal grandfather, Silas Brennan. Silas was old money. He had founded, built, and sold a medical device company, Brennan Dynamics, for a sum that was never discussed, only implied. He lived in Brennan House, an imposing stone manor on the wealthy side of the river, a place my parents only visited on obligatory holidays. My mother, Ruth, was his only child, and their relationship was a famously cold one. The family gossip, curated by my mother, was that Silas was difficult, unforgiving, and miserly. He was also, for the last 5 years, confined to a wheelchair after a stroke. I drove my dented sedan through the wrought iron gates of Brennan House, feeling like an imposter. The gravel drive crunched under my tires, the sound too loud in the opulent quiet. The house was tended with a precision my parents' home lacked. Their suburban aspiration was a cheap imitation of this solid generational wealth. A woman in a crisp uniform I recognized as May, the longtime housekeeper, answered the door. She looked surprised to see me, and her smile was strained. Miss Holly, we were not expecting you. Your mother is not here. I know, I said. I'm here to see my grandfather. I'm here to see Silas. May's expression tightened. She hesitated, her hand still on the heavy oak door. He is not always himself, she began. Miss Holly, his mind comes and goes. I'll take my chances. Please, May. It's important. She must have seen the desperation in my eyes, a look that did not belong in this house. She sighed and let me in. He is in the solarium. He has good moments and bad moments. You should try to speak with him when he is lucid. I found him by the tall glass windows, a heavy tartan blanket across his knees, staring out at the immaculate, sprawling gardens. His body was frail, lost in the mechanics of the expensive wheelchair. But his eyes, when they turned to me, were not vague. They were sharp as flint. Holly, he said. His voice was thin, but carried the unmistakable vibration of authority. You are not your mother. You do not visit. No, I said, pulling up a chair, my hands clammy. I do not. I should have. Probably not. I am not good company. He studied my face, his gaze unnerving. You look like her, but your eyes are panicked. Ruth's are never panicked, only calculating. What did she do? The question was so direct, so lacking in polite fiction. It knocked the breath out of me. There was no "how are you?" No pretense, just the cut to the bone. I told him. I told him everything. The $10,000 from my savings, the Nordstrom watch, the dinner party, the maxed-out credit cards, the $15,000 personal loan, the police calling it a civil matter, the bank refusing the chargebacks, the concerned phone calls to my friends and family, painting me as unstable. He listened without a single interruption. His face did not change. The only sign of his attention was the slow, steady tapping of one finger on the rubber wheel of his chair. When I finished, the silence in the room was heavy. 1979, he said finally, his voice dry as old paper. What? 1979, he repeated, turning his gaze back to the garden. Your father, Graham, was a young man with expensive tastes and no patience. He found a bookie. He got in deep, very deep, $40,000, which was a fortune. Then he paused, letting the memory settle in the room. Ruth came to me, weeping, not for her husband, but for her status, the shame of it. She begged me to pay it. I refused. I told her that stupidity has a price, and Graham had to pay it. So, what happened? How did they pay it? Silas's lip curled in a faint, bitter smile. She told me she found a way, a blessing from the church. 2 months later, I had lunch with the pastor of their little fellowship. He was thanking me for my daughter's incredible generosity. How she had single-handedly funded the new roof for the community center from the church benevolence fund she managed. The pieces clicked. She stole it from the church. She redirected it. Silas corrected. She was the trusted face, managing donations from old widows. She covered Graham's debts, and then she organized a bake sale to replenish the fund, a hero. That was the day I knew exactly who my daughter was. A cold dread washed over me. This was not new. This was foundational. That's not all, I whispered. Elise, my sister, they stole her wedding fund. $8,000. 3 years ago. That sounds about right, Silas said, nodding slowly. They get sloppy when they are squeezed. 10 years ago. She came here, sat right where you are sitting. The housing market had crashed. Graham had made another bad investment. They were about to lose that ridiculous house of theirs. She asked for an advance on her inheritance. And what did you say? I asked. No, Silas stated. I told her my will was ironclad, and that she would get her share precisely when I was dead, and not 1 second before. I told her I would not finance her husband's incompetence. She was furious. They managed to save the house anyway, didn't they? I asked. I never did find out how. I stood up, my mind racing, connecting the dates. 10 years ago, the refusal. Then, a few years later, a string of smaller loans from friends. Then Elise's wedding fund, a bigger, more desperate theft, and now me. The escalation was clear. Each time they were in a financial hole, they found a new victim. Each victim was closer, the theft more brazen. Thank you, I said, my voice thick. You've helped more than you know. Holly, he called as I reached the door. I turned. His eyes were hard. Your mother believes she is smart, but she's just a creature of habit. And your father? Your father is weak. Do not mistake one for the other. Now go. This has tired me out. I left Brennan House with a history. I was no longer just a victim. I was an investigator. My next stop was the Beacon Ridge Fellowship. My parents' entire social identity was built on that church. They were not just attendees, they were pillars. My mother ran the hospitality committee and the Mission Abroad Fund. My father was on the finance board. I walked in on a Wednesday afternoon. Finding a church administrator in the office, I put on my best concerned daughter face, a mask that felt slimy and false. Hi, I'm Holly James, Ruth and Graham Holt's daughter. I'm helping my parents organize their tax documents, and my mom's records are, well, you know her. I gave a light, conspiratorial laugh. I just need to see the donation ledgers for the past few years, just to cross-reference her charitable giving. The administrator, happy to help the daughter of the esteemed Holts, pointed me to a shelf of bound volumes. The public pledge books are all here. I spent an hour poring over the neat cursive, and there it was, a special ledger separate from the general fund, the Beacon Ridge Rapid Response Storm Fund. It was started about 5 years ago. I scanned the donor list, name after name I recognized from my parents' dinner parties, and the dates were strange. The donations were clustered, but they did not correspond to any major hurricane, tornado, or disaster I could recall. The outflowing payments were even vaguer: relief supplies, GF Coast, aid distribution, local. No invoices, no recipient organizations, just lump sums. My pen hovered over one name, Mr. Keene. He was listed as the church accountant, but I knew for a fact he had not been the accountant for at least 2 years. I found him. He was running a small private tax prep office in a strip mall 3 towns over. I walked in without an appointment. He was a small, nervous man with ink stains on his shirt cuffs. Mr. Keene, I said, my name is Holly James. I'm looking into some financial irregularities at Beacon Ridge. The color drained from his face. I don't work there anymore. I retired. I know, I said gently. I'm not here to accuse you. I'm here because I think you saw something. I'm Ruth Holt's daughter. He visibly recoiled. Please leave. I have nothing to say about that family. They did it to me too, I said. They stole my life savings, and they are telling everyone I'm mentally unstable. He stopped, his hand on the door, and looked at me. He saw the same panic he must have felt. He shut the door. The Mission Abroad Fund, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Your mother, she ran it. Money came in from all the bake sales and special collections. Good-hearted money, he continued. She would submit invoices for school supplies in Guatemala or water filters in Nigeria. They were fake, flimsy printouts from websites that did not exist. How do you know? I tried to trace them, he said, his voice rising with old indignation. The wire transfers all went to a single clearing house, not to a charity. When I tried to flag it, when I brought it to the finance board, your father, Graham Holt, personally oversaw the meeting. He called my diligence a lack of faith. He said I was obstructing God's work. The board voted to thank me for my years of service and accept my immediate resignation. They called it a retirement to the congregation. He had been gaslit, just like Elise, just like me. I went back to my apartment and took out a legal pad. I drew a timeline. 1979. Graham's gambling. Ruth's first theft from the church. 10 years ago, denied inheritance by Silas. 5 years ago, storm relief fund created. 3 years ago, Elise's wedding fund, $8,000. 2 years ago, Mr. Keene fired for obstructing God's work. 2 weeks ago, me, $10,000 in savings, $30,000 in fraudulent loans. The victims were not random. Mrs. Allen, who gave $10,000 to the Storm Fund the month after her husband's funeral. The Petersons, who gave $5,000 after losing their home in a fire. Elise, at her most vulnerable, planning a wedding. Me, at my most hopeful, launching my business. We were all targets of easy sympathy. My mother was the face. She was the one who wept with the grieving widow, who brought casseroles to the family who'd lost everything. She was the one who offered, with a warm, caring smile, "Oh, let me help you with that, dear. You've got so much on your plate." My father was the hand. He sat on the boards. He managed the accounts. He silenced the Mr. Keenes of the world. He provided the financial and structural cover for her social predation. They were a seamless two-person operation perfected over decades. But it left one terrifying question. This was their pattern. But forging my signature on federal loan documents, stealing my social security number, committing multiple felonies, that was not just theft. That was a high-wire act with no safety net. That was not just covering a bad investment. That was scorched earth desperation. That was scorched earth desperation. What in God's name had happened in the last month that was so catastrophic they were willing to burn their own daughter to the ground to escape it? My apartment was no longer safe. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a threat. My parents knew where I lived. They had keys. They had already proven there was no boundary they would not cross. I was also drowning. Drowning in automated notifications of late fees on the fraudulent credit cards, overdraft alerts for my decimated checking account, and the constant ticking clock of Mr. Henderson's 7-day deadline. I was paralyzed by the sheer volume of the damage. I called Tara Quinn. Tara and I had been friends since a sophomore year graphic design class. She was the most practical, no-nonsense person I knew, running her own digital marketing agency from a sleek loft in the industrial district. She was all analytics and strategy. I did not even get halfway through the explanation, my voice cracking, before she cut me off. "Holly, shut up. Where are you?" My car, parked a block from my apartment. "I'm afraid to go inside." "Drive to my building," she commanded. "The garage code is 9021. Park in guest spot 3. Come upstairs. Bring your laptop. Bring every piece of paper you have." An hour later, I was on her leather sofa, drinking the strongest, sweetest tea I had ever had. She listened to the whole story, the bank alerts, the Nordstrom watch, the police officer's dismissal, the conversation with Elise, the dark history I'd learned from Silas. She listened without a word of pity, her eyes just getting narrower and narrower. When I finished, she stood up and walked to a large blank wall in her open-plan office space. "Right," she said, grabbing a pack of sticky notes. "They gaslit you. They gaslit your sister. They gaslit a church accountant. They are running a long con, and they just escalated to federal crimes. The problem is you're trying to fight a systemic problem, as a family dispute. You need to stop. Stop what? Stop trying to convince people, who are programmed to see you as the emotional daughter. You need to pivot. You are no longer Holly James, the victim. You are Holly James, the chief investigator of a multi-decade fraud scheme. She pulled a large whiteboard on wheels out of a closet. This is your new studio, Holly. Welcome to the Marvo Lightworks War Room. Let's get to work. For 2 days, we did not sleep. Tara, with her marketing brain, treated it like analyzing a competitor's failed campaign. They have a brand, she explained, her marker flying across the whiteboard. The Holt brand, pious, generous, trustworthy, stable. Your unstable narrative is the public relations campaign they launched to protect that brand. When a victim spoke up, we pinned up the timeline I had built after visiting Silas. We added the Nordstrom receipt. We printed the credit reports, the yellow highlighter bleeding over the fraudulent accounts. We created an Excel spreadsheet. A grim ledger of my stolen life, $10,000 in savings, $15,000 in personal loans, $30,000 in credit cards, total verified loss, $55,000. This is not enough, Tara said, staring at the board. This is still your word against theirs. He said, she said with a lot of felony paperwork. We need other voices. We need a chorus. But they are all terrified, I said, rubbing my eyes. Mr. Keene was fired. Elise was ostracized. The family believes the gaslight. That's because they were hit one by one, Tara said, her fingers flying across her keyboard. They were isolated. We need to unite them. She registered a new, anonymous domain. She set up a secure, encrypted email server, and she created a private, invitation-only Facebook group. She named it Reclaim and Recover, a Riverton support group. This is brilliant, Tara. But how do we get them to join? We don't, she said. We let them find us. We start with the story. Your story. I wrote it out. It was the hardest thing I'd ever written. Not a rant, but a cold, factual summary. I did not use my name. I did not use my parents' names. I wrote, I am a local professional. 2 trusted community members, known for their deep involvement in a local fellowship, exploited my trust to steal my business savings. They used a borrowed card to fund a luxury lifestyle, then opened multiple fraudulent lines of new credit in my name. When I confronted them, they launched a smear campaign, telling mutual friends I was mentally unstable and stressed. I am looking for others who may have had a similar experience with charity funds or temporary loans that were never repaid. Tara took my story and, using her marketing tools, micro-targeted it. She aimed it at a demographic, women aged 55 and older within a 10-mile radius of the Beacon Ridge Fellowship, who had liked or followed the church's public page. She also sent the anonymous post to Elise, Mr. Keene, and a few distant cousins I'd always suspected had been burned. The first day was silent. I was convinced it had failed. On the second night, a notification, Mr. Keene joined. He wrote, I was threatened for questioning the Mission Abroad Fund. An hour later, another, a woman named Janet Peterson. We lost our home in a fire 5 years ago. They managed a local aid fund for us. We saw less than half of what was donated. Then another, a cousin from my father's side. They helped me manage my taxes after my divorce. I ended up owing the IRS $7,000. They said it was my ex-husband's fault, that he'd hidden assets. I never understood it. Over the next 48 hours, the dam broke. It was a flood. 11 people, 11 stories, neighbors, relatives, members of the congregation. The modus operandi was the same every single time: borrowing a card, helping with the grocery shopping, managing taxes during a stressful time, setting up a private charity deposit. The numbers were staggering. $1,500 from a college student whose tuition check they'd offered to manage. $30,000 from Janet Peterson. $60,000 from an elderly couple who had given my father access to their retirement account for safe management while they traveled. My $55,000 was just the most recent, most brazen transaction. We were not dealing with desperate parents. We were dealing with serial predators who had netted, by our conservative estimate, over $200,000. The war room, Tara's minimalist loft, exploded. "This is an OSINT operation now," she declared. "Open source intelligence. We only use what they've made public. It's clean. It's legal." She assigned tasks to the group members who were tech-savvy and angry. "Janet, your son works in IT. Get him to search the public web archives. We need cached versions of any GoFundMe pages or church donation sites they managed. Download them before they are scrubbed. Mr. Keene, you handle the financials. Cross-reference the dates of these loans with any public statements from the church about successful campaigns. I'll handle social," Tara said, her eyes gleaming. She went deep into my mother's public Facebook and Instagram profiles. My mother's online narrative was all humility, service, and gratitude. But her photos told a different story. "Look at this," Tara said, zooming in on a photo from the church picnic 3 weeks ago. My mother, holding a tray of cookies, was wearing a new handbag. "That's a Louis Vuitton Neverfull. $3,000. And this," she said, pulling up another, "at the Mission Abroad charity auction. That bracelet, it's the Cartier Love bracelet, $7,000. Then she found the cruise. It was posted on my father's public timeline, a mission cruise, he had called it. A trip to bring aid and fellowship to the Caribbean. The photo showed my parents on the deck of a luxury liner, clinking champagne glasses. The geotag was not a mission hospital. It was a duty-free port known for its luxury goods. They are not just stealing, Tara murmured. They are bragging. The group was active. A buzzing hive of shared trauma and new evidence. Then a message came through to the Reclaim and Recover encrypted email. It was from an anonymous address. No name. The message was one sentence: they are not just spending. They are running. Look up one-way tickets to St. Elmo. It's a small island nation. No U.S. extradition treaty. St. Elmo. I had never heard of it. A quick search confirmed it. A beautiful, remote island and a notorious haven for financial criminals. This was it. This was the missing piece. This explained the escalation, the felonies. They were not just covering debts, they were building an escape fund. They were liquidating every asset, legal and illegal, before the whole house of cards collapsed. They had set me on fire to cover their escape. They are bolting, I said to Tara, the room spinning. They are going to run, and we'll all be left with the debt and the damage. No, Tara said, her voice turning to ice. We will not let them. If they are liquidating, they are moving money. If they are moving money, they are opening new accounts. She sat me down at her keyboard. What email addresses do they use? The public ones, the ones for the church, for their bills. I typed them in. Good, she said. Now we are going to set up alerts, not hacking. This is all above board. We are going to use a simple monitoring service. If any new account is registered online using these specific public email addresses, a bank, a crypto wallet, an airline, we get a notification. It's basic OSINT. We set the trap. We did not have to wait long. The alert hit my phone at 3:17 in the morning. It was a high-priority ping from the monitoring service. I scrambled for my laptop, my heart hammering. Alert. New account registration detected for Graham, Holt, finance@gmail.com. Service, Bay International. I typed it into a search engine. Bonk International. De Sant Elmo. They had done it. They had opened the offshore account. The alerts kept coming. A flurry of them. My father, in his arrogance, was using the same email for everything. A new login at a currency exchange site. A new account at a precious metals dealer. Tara looked over my shoulder, her face grim. They are moving it fast. Small sums. Probably trying to stay under the $10,000 reporting threshold. They are bailing. Holly, they are cashing out. I looked at the war room wall, the faces of the 11 victims, the timeline of my parents' systematic destruction, the police who would not help, the bank that refused. You were right, Tara, I said, my voice hardening. The last of my fear burned away, leaving something cold and sharp. I have been trying to convince them. I have been confronting them. I have been playing their game. I closed the laptop. No more, I said. We stop playing defense. We stop reacting. We change the rules. They want to play in the financial world. Fine. We will stop treating this like a family drama and start treating it like what it is. A complex financial crime. What's the play, boss? Tara asked. We stop talking to them, I said. And we start talking to the people they are afraid of. The war room in Tara's loft was a museum of our family's destruction. But it was just that, a museum. It was history. It was not a weapon. We had the what, the who, and the how. We were missing the now what. We've hit a wall with the police and the bank, I said, pacing the floor. We are just victims. They won't listen to victims. Then we stop acting like them, Tara said, closing her laptop. I know a guy. He's not a lawyer. At least not the kind you're thinking of. He's a consultant for insurance companies. His name is Sam Whitaker. Insurance. How does that help? His specialty, his entire career was financial fraud investigation. He's retired from the State Division. He doesn't investigate crime, he investigates liability. He finds out who pays. He's the guy insurance companies hire when they suspect $1 million arson isn't arson, it's a bankruptcy. He doesn't care about feelings. He only cares about the math. Tara made the call. Sam agreed to meet us pro bono as a favor. His office was not a sleek downtown tower. It was a cramped, dusty room above a sandwich shop, smelling of old paper and lukewarm coffee. Sam Whitaker was a man in his late 60s with a rumpled suit and the most patient, tired eyes I had ever seen. He looked like he had absorbed every lie ever told. We did not give him the emotional story. We just taped our evidence to his wall, the 11 victims from the Reclaim group, the Excel sheet detailing the $200,000 plus total, the timeline, Mr. Keene's testimony, the photos of the watch, the bag, the cruise, the Bay International account alert. He spent 20 minutes in total silence, just walking the wall, sipping his coffee. He read every single sticky note. Finally, he turned to us. You have an impressive case. I felt a surge of hope. So you'll take it. You'll help us get it to the police. No, he said flatly. The police were right. It's a mess. You're trying to nail them for grand larceny, but it's buried in decades of implied authorization, family loans, and she said. You'll spend years in civil court and get nothing. You're aiming at the wrong target. My face fell. Then what's the right one? Sam tapped the whiteboard. You're focused on what they stole from you. You need to focus on what they stole from the government. You stop talking about family debt. You start talking about tax evasion. He walked over to Tara's social media printouts. Your father is retired. Your mother is a homemaker. What's their declared income? Social Security. A small pension. Maybe $60,000 a year, if that, I said. And what's this, he said, tapping the photo of the $7,000 Cartier bracelet, and this $4,000 watch, this $10,000 mission cruise, this $3,000 handbag. He pulled out a calculator. They are living a lifestyle that requires an income of at least $100,000 a year, but they are not declaring it. The difference between what they earn and what they spend, that difference, Ms. James, is undeclared income. The IRS hates undeclared income. They take it very, very personally. But where did the income come from? I asked. Sam pointed to Mr. Keen's testimony and the Storm Relief Fund ledger. Right here. This isn't theft, not in a clean way. This is money laundering. They solicit tax-free donations to a religious fund. They don't steal the money, they just spend it. They use the fund as a personal checking account. They buy their watches and their cruises. And then your father, on the finance board, approves the fake invoices from Guatemalan schools to zero out the books. They are living a high-end lifestyle tax-free on the donations of grieving widows. He looked at me, his eyes sharp. That's the crime. It's not a family squabble. It's felony tax evasion and the fraudulent use of a non-profit. That's a public crime. The plan shifted. We were no longer building a case for the Riverton PD. We were building an audit package for the Internal Revenue Service. For the next week, we worked under Sam's direction. We were no longer victims. We were forensic accountants. Tara used her OSINT skills to pull 7 years of public property records for their house. We cross-referenced their property tax payments against their estimated income. The Reclaim and Recover group provided a flood of data, bank statements showing transfers to the Mission Fund, emails from my mother promising prayer, and financial stewardship. We standardized every piece of evidence. We matched Tara's social media photos to the credit card statements, and my Nordstrom receipt. Exhibit A. Photo of Ruth at the church picnic. Posted June 3, time-stamped receipt for Louis Vuitton handbag purchase June 1. Exhibit B. Photo of Graham on the Mission Cruise. Posted August 12. Fraudulent credit card statement in my name showing a $7,000 charge to a travel agency dated August 10. Exhibit C. Mr. Keen's testimony detailing the fake invoices for the Mission Abroad Fund matched against bank transfers from that fund to an untraceable shell corporation. Sam took our emotional, chaotic wall of pain and forged it into a cold, clinical 360 degrees profile. It showed the entire life cycle of the fraud, the flow of money from victims into the tax-free church fund, laundered via fake invoices, converted into personal assets, watches, handbags, travel. I'm estimating conservatively $150,000 in undeclared, laundered income over the last 7 years alone, not including what they took from you and your sister. That's a federal case. And with the Offshore Bay International account, that's not just evasion, that's flight. He had us prepare 2 identical packages, thick spiral-bound reports complete with table of contents, victim impact statements focused only on the money and the evidence, all cross-referenced. One package was labeled IRS Criminal Investigation Division. The other, Cascadia State Financial Crimes Unit. These are the hammers, Sam said, tapping the thick binders. We don't send them yet. We wait. We need one more thing. What? I asked. We need to stop the other attack. The gaslighting, Sam said. They are still out there controlling the narrative, painting you as unstable. We need to shut that down, and we need to do it in a way that makes them panic. He sent me to Patricia Delaney, a lawyer at a legal aid clinic. She was the opposite of Sam. She was a fighter, young, sharp, and running on pure caffeine and righteous anger. I was not a daughter to her. I was a textbook case of identity theft and financial abuse. The police won't help. The bank won't help. And your family is trying to have you declared incompetent, she summarized, typing furiously. Got it. We are not going to sue them for the $10,000. That's what they expect. We are going to hit them where they are vulnerable, the fraudulent debt. She drafted a formal, terrifying cease and desist letter. It was not emotional, it was a cold legal document. It stated that she was representing me in the matter of $30,000 of fraudulent debt acquired in my name. It listed the 3 credit cards and the personal loan. It demanded that Ruth and Graham Holt immediately cease and desist all contact with my friends, colleagues, and professional network. It stated that any further attempts to discuss my mental state would be considered witness tampering and defamation. A bike messenger delivered the letter to their front door. The effect was instantaneous. The phone calls to my friends stopped. The whispers to my extended family went silent. It was 48 hours of total, terrifying silence. Then the response came. It was not a phone call. It was a letter delivered to my apartment by a courier. It was printed on the thickest, most expensive cream-colored stationery I had ever touched. The letterhead was embossed in dark blue, Barnett, Lell, attorney at law. Barnett Lell, the most ruthless, high-profile, and expensive defense attorney in Riverton. The shark. My hands shook as I read it. It was a counterattack. It accused me of harassment. It accused me of defamation. It stated that I was the perpetrator of a cruel and unfounded vendetta against my loving, concerned parents. It claimed I was deeply unwell, and that my fantastical allegations were causing them severe emotional and financial distress. It concluded by threatening to file a multi-million-dollar lawsuit for libel and slander if I did not immediately retract all false statements and cease all contact. I ran to Sam's office, the letter clutched in my hand. They are going to sue me, I choked out, throwing the letter on his desk. They are going to destroy me. He's a shark, Sam. They hired Barnett Lell. Sam picked up the letter. He read it slowly. His tired eyes scanned the aggressive legal threats, and then, for the first time since I had met him, Sam Whitaker smiled, a real, genuine, wolfish smile. This, he said, tapping the expensive letterhead, is the best news we could have possibly hoped for. What are you talking about? They are threatening to sue me into oblivion. Holly, look at this, he said, holding the letter up to the light. Barnett Lell does not get out of bed for less than a $50,000 retainer. Just a start. Now ask yourself, how does a retired couple on Social Security, who supposedly needed to borrow $10,000 for essentials, afford to hire the most expensive lawyer in the state? He leaned back in his chair, the smile spreading. They are panicking. They are so terrified of you, they've made their first critical, sloppy mistake. They are spending the stolen money, the laundered money, to hire a lawyer to defend their right to keep the stolen money. They are commingling the funds. They are spending it on the record. They are literally paying a lawyer with evidence. They are leaving a bright, beautiful, expensive paper trail that leads right back to the Mission Fund and the Bay account. They are desperate, and desperate people. Sam said always make one more mistake. Sam's analysis of the Barnett Lell letter shifted everything. It was not a threat, it was a receipt. It was proof of panic. They were bleeding stolen money in broad daylight to silence me. The hunters were clumsy and they were scared. So, we push them, Sam said, his voice flat. They've just proven they are terrified of the legal system. They are acting like cornered animals. So, we give them a way out. A fake one, Tara said, already catching his drift. We reverse the dynamic. They think you're loud, hysterical, and aggressive. You're going to become the opposite. My new strategy was silence. I went dark. I logged out of the Reclaim and Recover group, leaving Tara to manage the flow of information. I deactivated my Instagram, my Facebook. I stopped answering texts from extended family. I let Barnett Lell's threat hang in the air, seemingly unanswered. I let them think they had won. I let them think they had successfully, finally silenced me. For 1 week, I was a ghost. Then I sent the lure. I typed out a single text message to my mother's phone. I wrote and rewrote it with Sam and Tara coaching until it was perfect. It could not sound angry. It had to sound broken. Mom, I can't do this anymore. The fighting, the lawyers, it's destroying me. I just want to understand. I need this to heal. Can we please just talk? Just you and me. Her reply came back in under 60 seconds. It was a predator pouncing on a wounded animal. Oh, Holly, of course. My heart has been broken. I've been so worried. I just want my daughter back. Tomorrow. The cafe at the Riverton Library. 10 a.m. Just us. She's coming to finish the job, Tara said grimly. To put the unstable daughter back in her box. Exactly, Sam said. He handed me a small, slim device. It looked like a high-end USB flash drive, but with a tiny microphone grill. Put this in your purse. Leave the zipper open an inch. Do not touch it. Do not mention it. Our state is a one-party consent jurisdiction. You are a party to the conversation. This is 100% legal. He looked me hard in the eyes. You are not there to accuse. You are not there to fight. You are not there to win. You are a lost, confused, and broken child. You are there to listen. And you are there to plant 2 seeds, just 2. The atrium of the library cafe was bright, sterile, and full of the quiet sounds of shuffling papers and steaming milk. It was a perfect neutral territory. I got there early, set my bag on the table, and ordered a chamomile tea, my shaking hands barely able to hold it. My mother, Ruth, walked in at 10 a.m. on the dot. She had dressed for the part. No designer bag, no flashy jewelry. She wore a simple beige cardigan, pearl earrings, and a face of profound maternal concern. It was her most dangerous uniform. She sat down and immediately reached across the table, covering my hands with hers. Her skin was cool. Oh, Holly, she sighed, her voice a perfect simulation of love. Look at you. You're so pale. This whole horrible business. It's just a terrible, terrible misunderstanding. I looked down, playing the part Sam had rehearsed with me. I think I'm just so stressed, Mom. The studio, the money, everything. I think I'm just overwhelmed. She squeezed my hands, a gesture of control. Of course you are, dear. We know. We've all been so worried about you. You've been imagining things. You've gotten this idea in your head. Your father and I would never, ever hurt you. You know that. We were just borrowing it to cover a small expense. We were going to pay it all back. And then you got hysterical. It was the gaslight script, the one she had used on my cousins, my friends, my sister. I was hearing the master performance live. I know, I whispered, letting my voice tremble. I think I just panicked. And then that lawyer, Mr. Lel, his letter, it scared me. It all just got so big so fast. He is just protecting us, dear, she said, her voice a soothing balm. Protecting the family from this confusion, from your stress. He knows you're not well. This was it, the opening. I had to pivot from confused to confused about specifics. I want to believe you, Mom. I really do, I said, looking up, letting her see the tears in my eyes. I just don't understand everything. I'm still so confused. What don't you understand, Holly? We can explain it all. I took a shaky breath. I don't understand why you need a one-way ticket to St. Elmo. Her hands, which had been stroking mine in a comforting rhythm, stopped instantly. Her smile did not falter, but it became a rictus, a frozen mask painted on. Her eyes, which had been so soft and full of pity, sharpened to ice picks. What did you say? Her voice was a half-octave higher. I pressed on, still the confused child. And the bank. I was just confused about the account. The one for the mission, the one at Bay International. Is that how you say it? She ripped her hands back from mine as if I had burned her. The mask of the loving mother did not just crack, it evaporated. In its place was a face of pure, cold venom. Who told you that? She hissed, her voice low and dangerous. The recorder in my bag was catching it all. The switch. The admission. Was it Tara? She spat. Are you hacking my computer? You're lying, she snapped, her face flushing a deep mottled red. You come here, you beg me to heal, and you are spying. Just like that awful lawyer said. You are sick. You are twisted, Holly. The pivot was complete. The violent, instantaneous turn from "you're confused, dear," to "you are spying." The second the specific, non-public evidence was mentioned, it was a full confession wrapped in an accusation. I had what I needed. But Sam had told me to plant the second seed, the panic seed. I let the real fear I felt show. I started to cry. The tears hot and real. I'm not spying. I'm scared. Scared of what? She scoffed. Scared we'll finally tell everyone the truth about you. I got a letter, I improvised the lie, coming easily. A notification about my taxes, because of all the new accounts you opened. And they mentioned a review. What? What letter? Her anger was instantly eclipsed by a new, sharper emotion, fear. I don't know, I sobbed. It was just a form about the new loan. And I called them, the IIS, just to ask. And the woman, she said they move really fast on these things. That's all. She said the IIS sends out letters really fast once a file is open. Bay, St. Elmo, and now the three most terrifying letters in the English language, IIS. I watched her face as she processed the combination. This was no longer a family squabble. This was a federal investigation. She stood up so abruptly, her chair scraped loudly on the stone floor, making a nearby student look up. Her hands were fumbling as she grabbed her purse. I am done, she said, her voice shaking with a new, raw panic. I am done with you. Mom, wait. No, you are not my daughter. You are something else. She was already backing away, her eyes darting toward the exit. I have to go. I have to call the bank. I have an appointment with the safe deposit box. She had not meant to say it. It was a verbal slip, a panicked brain revealing its checklist. She was going to move the physical assets. She turned and practically ran out of the atrium, leaving me sitting at the table, my tea cold. My hand trembled as I reached into my bag and clicked off the recorder. I was back at Tara's loft in 20 minutes. We plugged the recorder into her laptop and listened. Holy hell, Tara whispered when we got to the part about Bay International. That's the sound of a rat hitting a high-voltage trap. The second you said the name. And then this, I said, skipping ahead. We listened to my mother's panicked, fleeing voice. Call the bank. Safe deposit box. She's going to liquidate, Tara said, her eyes wide. She's going to pull the cash, the watch, whatever bonds or bearer documents are in that box, and she's going to run. We did not have to wait long. At 3:17 that afternoon, the OSINT monitoring software on Tara's laptop, which had been dormant for a week, exploded. Ping alert, login detected. holt.finance@gmail.com. Bay International. Ping alert, login detected. Cascadia Precious Metals. Ping alert, login detected. Shadowtransfer.com, ping alert, new account registration. CryptoLink. Exodus Wallet. They are not just logging in, Tara breathed, watching the screen. They are moving it. Look, multiple transfer initiations, small amounts, $500, $1,000, $700. They are trying to liquidate everything in a flurry of microtransactions, hoping it's too fast, too small to track. They are trying to get it all offshore now. My phone rang. It was Sam. How did it go, Holly? My voice was breathless. It worked. She confirmed Bay International just by reacting. And I baited her with the IIS. She mentioned a safe deposit box. And now Tara's monitor is on fire. They are moving money fast, to Bay International, to a crypto wallet right now. I could hear the grim satisfaction in Sam's voice. Perfect. They are in a blind panic. They are sloppy. They are scared. This is exactly what we wanted. They are currently actively writing their own indictment for us. What do we do now, Sam? Do we send the packages to the IIS? We do, he said, but we add the new evidence first. Tara, I need a clean, legally admissible printout of that monitoring log. Just the metadata, timestamps, service names, the IP addresses. Nothing that constitutes a hack, just a log of their public-facing activity. Got it. Already printing, Tara said. Holly, you're going to write a transcript of that recording. A clean, verbatim transcript. You're going to add it, the log and the audio file, to the IIS and state FCU packages. They are no longer just evidence of a past crime. They are now evidence of an ongoing crime, evidence of flight risk, evidence of active money laundering. And then, Sam continued, his voice like iron, we make one more move. Now that we have proof of active liquidation and offshore accounts, we can petition the state for an emergency preservation order. We are going to freeze them. Freeze them. We are asking a judge to legally command Harbour Crest Bank, Bay International, and the Beacon Ridge Fellowship to preserve all records, to lock every account, to seal that safe deposit box. They've been digging their own grave, Sam said. Tomorrow, we are going to take away their shovels. The preservation order was a legal grenade. We had pulled the pin, and now we were waiting. But desperate people do not wait, they react. I had been staying in Tara's spare room, living out of a duffel bag. But I needed my original portfolio, my physical prints. I needed to salvage something of Marvo Lightworks, even if it was just the memory. I drove back to my apartment. I knew before I put the key in the lock, the wood of the door jamb was splintered. The metal plate of the lock bent. Someone had shoulder-checked it, brute force. The apartment was not just tossed, it was dissected. They had not taken the television. They had not touched the few pieces of jewelry I owned. They had gone straight to my office. My laptop was gone. My 2 backup hard drives, the ones I kept in a small, supposedly fireproof box, were gone. My desk drawers were pulled out, their contents emptied. But they had been selective. They had not just dumped them, they had taken things. My tax returns from the last 5 years, my university transcripts, the original signed incorporation papers for Marvo Lightworks, all my student loan documents. They were trying to erase the version of me that existed on paper. I called the Riverton PD. It was a different officer this time, but the same suffocating apathy. Looks like a simple smash and grab, he said, noting the missing laptop. They didn't take my TV, I said, my voice flat. They took my hard drives. They took my 1099 forms from 3 years ago. Does that sound like a junkie? He sighed, clicked his pen. They probably just grabbed the whole desk drawer. They'll dump the papers later. You should get a deadbolt. He handed me a card with a case number. He was gone in 10 minutes. It was another civil matter. I walked down to the parking garage, my hands shaking. The break-in felt like a violation, but it was the spray paint that felt personal. Bright red, dripping letters across the entire driver's side of my car, liar. It was not the careful, practiced script of a street artist. It was the clumsy, furious rage of my father. I could feel his hand in the motion. I looked up at the small, domed security camera in the corner of the garage. I found the attendant. Oh yeah, he said, not looking up from his magazine. That camera on level 2, it's been on the fritz all week. Management's been meaning to fix it. Of course it had. I drove back to Tara's loft, the word liar announcing my arrival. She met me in the garage, her face pale, but she was not looking at my car. She was looking at her phone. Holly, she said, her voice tight. They are not just coming for you anymore. She held out the phone, an anonymous number, a text message. It was not for me, it was for her. Tell your friend to stop digging. You have a nice boyfriend. Be ashamed if his new job in Seattle suddenly found a reason to rescind the offer. My blood went cold. This was not my father. This was my mother. This was her signature. Surgical, specific, and aimed at the place that would hurt the most. Tara's boyfriend, Mark, had just accepted that dream job last week. It was not public knowledge. My mother would have had to dig to call someone to find that specific piece of leverage. Before I could even respond, my own phone buzzed. It was my sister. Elise, I answered, and all I could hear was her panicked breathing. Elise, what's wrong? I'm out, Holly, she whispered. Her voice was thin, terrified. I'm out. I'm sorry. What happened? Did they call you? A package, she stammered. It came to the house here in Portland. How did they get my new address? It was just a dead bird in a little box with a note. It just said, stop talking. She was sobbing now. I have kids, Holly. I have a family. I can't. Please take my name off everything. I never spoke to you. I don't know anything. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She hung up. I stood in the concrete garage, the smell of spray paint stinging my nose. They had broken into my home, vandalized my car, threatened my best friend's partner, and sent a dead animal to my sister. In 48 hours, they had successfully isolated me. Tara looked at me, her own fear warring with her anger. I'm not backing down, Holly. But we are locking down my digital life right now. The network of victims had fractured. Elise was gone. Tara was now a target. It was just me. The institutional net, the one Sam had built, was still moving. The preservation order had frozen the accounts, but we needed more. We needed someone on the inside of their fortress. The Beacon Ridge Fellowship. The old pastor, a man who had been my father's close friend, had retired 6 months ago. The new man, Reverend Cole, was young, idealistic, and according to my mother's complaints, annoyingly obsessed with bylaws. He was perfect. I made an appointment. I did not go as a daughter. Reverend Cole, I said, sitting in his sterile, organized office, I believe there are profound, long-term financial irregularities in the Mission Abroad Fund. He was immediately guarded. Miss James, I know who you are. Your parents they are pillars of this church. These are very serious accusations. I know, I said. And I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to believe your own invoices. I had saved them from Mr. Keene. I laid 3 of them on the desk. These are invoices for Guatemalan school supplies. They are dated January, April, and July of last year. All signed off by my father. I see that. I'm a photographer, Reverend. I work with printers and digital fonts every day. Please look closer. I handed him a small photographer's loupe. Look at the font in Guatemala. On all 3. He bent down. He was silent for a full minute. There's a speck, a tiny missing piece of ink. On all 3. I said, now look at the kerning. The spacing between the M and the A in Guatemala, it's identical. These were not printed 3 months apart, Reverend. These were printed on the same day, from the same computer, on the same printer, with the same error. They were created in a batch to retroactively justify missing funds. He sat back, his face ashen. The idealist had just met the predator. This, he whispered, this is a violation. Mr. Keene was fired for noticing it. I am just asking you to do what he could not, I said. Protect your church. He did not give me an answer, but 2 days later, Tara got an encrypted email from Mr. Keene. His one remaining friend on the church finance board had contacted him. Reverend Cole had presented the invoices. The board had held a secret emergency vote. They voted to freeze all discretionary funds managed by my parents, and to immediately hire an external forensic auditing firm. The walls of the fortress were caving in. The institutional pressure mounted. A week after we sent Sam's packages, the first official hammer fell. I was checking the mail at my vandalized apartment when I saw a certified letter stuck to my door. It was misdelivered. It was addressed to Ruth and Graham Holt. It was from the Cascadia State Department of Revenue, Financial Crimes Unit. I took a picture of the envelope and sent it to Sam. He called me, his voice grim. That's it. That's the first shot. They've been sent a formal request for documents. They have 10 business days to produce 7 years of financial records that they cannot, under any circumstances, explain. The clock was now ticking loudly. The very next day, the second hammer fell. Tara got an email alert. A new motion had been filed in the county court system. Barnett Lell, the shark, was formally petitioning the court to withdraw as counsel for Ruth and Graham Holt. The official reason, an irreconcilable and unforeseen conflict of interest. I called Sam, confused. What does that mean? Why would he quit? Sam let out a dry laugh. It means he got our tax package. Holly, it means he asked his clients, do you have offshore accounts? Did you launder money? And they lied to him. And then he saw our evidence, the Bay International logs, and realized his clients were not just liars, they were stupid. Barnett Lell will defend murderers, but he will not be made an accessory to active tax fraud. He's not just withdrawing, he's running. Your parents are now legally toxic. They were alone. Their lawyer was gone. They were alone. Their lawyer was gone. The church was investigating them. The state was demanding an audit. They were cornered. And then, in their final flailing act of desperation, they handed me my shield. A sheriff's deputy knocked on Tara's door. He was holding an envelope for Holly James. I opened it. It was the temporary restraining order, the one they had filed weeks ago, claiming they were in fear for their safety, claiming I was mentally unstable and harassing them. It was a document filled with the most vicious, calculated lies. Tara was incandescent with rage. We are fighting this. This is perjury. We will go to the hearing, and we will show the judge. No, I said, looking at the paper. But I was hearing Sam's voice. Let them think they are winning. No, I repeated, my voice calm. We are not going to fight it. We are going to obey it. Tara stared at me. What are you talking about? They are legally silencing you. Exactly, I said. They have just gone on record in a court of law that I am the aggressor. They have legally forbidden me from contacting them. They have forbidden me from coming within 100 yards of them. They have just handed me the perfect alibi. I picked up my phone and called Sam. They served me the TRO. Good, he said. Do not fight it. Accept service. You are now, by their own legal petition, the victim being silenced. You are legally prevented from warning them about the state investigation. You are legally prevented from harassing them to stop. They've just built a wall to protect you from the shrapnel. I turned my phone off. I powered down the laptop. The state had given them 10 days. Their lawyer was gone. Their church was auditing them. And I, the unstable daughter, had just legally vanished. They were trapped alone in a house of their own making, and the exits were sealed. The temporary restraining order was my shield. Their own legal weapon, designed to silence me, had become my perfect court-mandated alibi. I was legally, forcibly removed from the equation. I could not contact them. I could not warn them. I could not interfere. I could only obey the order and watch. The last 72 hours before the deadline, 10 a.m. Monday morning, were a blow of clinical precision. Tara's loft was no longer a war room, it was a publishing house. Sam Whitaker directed the final assembly. We took our sprawling, chaotic map of pain, fraud, and digital ghosts and collated it into the Holt report. It was 44 pages long. It detailed 12 primary victims. It estimated a minimum of $200,000 in provable, quantifiable damages, not including the fraudulent credit lines. It contained Tara's beautiful, terrible flowcharts showing money moving from grieving widows into the Storm Relief Fund and from there directly to luxury cruise lines. It included my father's signature on the fake invoices next to Mr. Keene's sworn testimony. It included the full, chilling transcript of my meeting with my mother and the high-fidelity audio file on 7 separate thumb drives. It included the Bay International and crypto wallet logs proving active, ongoing money laundering and flight risk. We printed and bound 7 copies. It felt like a ritual. Package 1, IIS Criminal Investigation Division, sent via registered courier, marked attention, special agent in charge. Sam assured me this one would cut through the bureaucracy. Tax evasion with active offshore laundering isn't a file, he'd said. It's a career maker. Package 2, Cascadia State Financial Crimes Unit. This one included the evidence from my break-in and the red spray paint. Package 3, the Riverton County District Attorney. This one highlighted the felonies, the forged loan documents, the identity theft, the wire fraud. Package 4, the new Riverton Chief of Police. Sam had found out the new chief was a reformer who despised the old boys club my father belonged to. We bypassed the precinct and Detective Miller, my father's poker buddy, entirely. This package emphasized the serial nature of the crimes against the elderly in his new jurisdiction. Package 5, the full Beacon Ridge Fellowship Committee, addressed personally to Reverend Cole. This one included the high-resolution photographs of the faked invoices and the font analysis. Package 6, Lydia Crane, the Brennan family attorney. This was for my grandfather Silas. It was the complete report, plus a personal note from me simply saying, "You were right. She is a creature of habit." Package 7 was different. It was not a physical package. It was an email. Tara had spent a day building the distribution list. It was my mother's entire digital world. The church prayer group, the neighbors in Willow Creek, our extended family, the cousins, the aunts, everyone who had received the Holly is unstable email. She attached a PDF version of the report, stripped of the sensitive IIS data, but overflowing with the victim statements, the timeline of the thefts, the photos of the watch, the Cartier bracelet, the luxury handbag, the hypocrisy laid bare. She scheduled the email to send at exactly 10 a.m. on Monday. Why 10 o'clock? I'd asked. The state tax office opens at 9 o'clock, Tara said, her face grim. The police chief has his morning briefing at 9:30. This gives the official packages 60 minutes to land, to be opened, and for the first calls to be made. The email bomb isn't the primary attack, it's the social execution. Time to coincide with the moment they realize the official cavalry is already on its way. Monday morning, I did not sleep. I sat in a small, independent coffee shop on the corner of my parents' street. I was well over 100 yards away, sitting in my car in the parking lot, legally observing. The TRO was a crisp, folded document in my pocket. I was obeying the law. I watched their house. The curtains were drawn. It looked asleep. 9:15 a.m. The mail truck made its slow way down the street. A certified letter requiring a signature was delivered to their door. My father, in his bathrobe, signed for it. He took it inside, presumably thinking it was just another move from Barnett Lell's replacement. 9:30 a.m. Nothing. 9:45 a.m. A dark sedan I did not recognize parked 3 houses down. A man in a suit sat inside, just watching. 9:59 a.m. My phone, which I had placed on the dashboard, buzzed. It was an alert from the Reclaim and Recover group. Now just me, Tara, and a few others. Janet Peterson wrote, "Something is happening." My neighbor, who is on the church board, just called me crying. The email bomb was live. The digital payload had struck. I looked at the house across the street. I saw a neighbor, Mrs. Gable, come out onto her porch, staring at her phone. She looked up at my parents' house, her hand over her mouth. Another neighbor came out, then another. And then, at exactly 10 o'clock, I heard it. It was not a yell. It was a scream. A raw, primal, guttural sound that cut through the quiet suburban morning. It was my mother. It was the sound of a carefully constructed universe imploding. She knew, in that instant, that her name, her reputation, her entire social identity was gone. My phone erupted. A flood of text messages. "Holly, what is this? Oh my God, your mother. I never believed her. I'm so sorry. Cops. Cops are pulling up. 2 cars. I looked up. It was not the local Riverton patrol. It was 2 unmarked state investigator cars. They pulled into the driveway, blocking my father's car. The man in the suit I'd seen earlier got out along with 3 others. They were not knocking. They were pounding on the door, shouting, "State investigators, search warrant." The front door opened. My father stood there, the certified letter still in his hand, his face a mask of total, arrogant confusion. They pushed past him and into the house. I watched, motionless, sipping my cold coffee. A third car pulled up. This one said, Digital Forensics Unit. They went in. I saw my father through the living room window. He was scrambling toward his office, toward his computer tower. An investigator grabbed his arm. It was a brief, pathetic struggle. A few minutes later, 2 men from the forensics unit came out carrying his desktop PC, 2 laptops, and a box of hard drives. They were seizing everything. The show was not over. Another investigator's car drove past me, not to the house, but toward the bank downtown. The warrant, bolstered by my audio recording, included the safe deposit box. They were in the house for 2 hours. At 12:30 p.m., the news van arrived. The Riverton Gazette. Someone from the church board must have leaked it. The email bomb had done its job. The story was public. The reporter, a young woman I recognized from a freelance shoot, was broadcasting live from the sidewalk. Shocking allegations rocking the Beacon Ridge Fellowship community this morning, she was saying into the camera. We are hearing reports of a complex financial fraud scheme allegedly orchestrated by 2 of its most prominent members. The door of my parents' house opened. The investigators came out carrying more evidence bags. One of them was a long, flat box, the kind a luxury watch comes in. My father and mother were brought out. They were not in handcuffs. Not yet. But they were broken. My father looked grey. His bluster and arrogance completely gone. My mother was wearing sunglasses, but she was shaking. Her face streaked with tears. They were the picture of the victims she had so often pretended to comfort. My phone rang. It was Sam. It's done, he said. His voice was calm. Just another day at the office. The warrant was executed based on the state package. They hit the house and the bank simultaneously. Did they? They got it all, Holly, he said. The bank drilled the safe deposit box. It was a treasure trove. The original fake mission documents, the one-way flight itineraries to St. Elmo, booked for next week, and as a lovely piece of physical confirmation, a men's chronograph, retail value $4,320. The Nordstrom tags were still in the box. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for my entire life. The church has officially frozen all their funds, Sam continued. Reverend Cole is holding an emergency community meeting tonight to disclose the forensic audit. The DEA is filing charges this afternoon. Flight risk, wire fraud, multiple counts of grand larceny, and of course, the tax evasion. They are, as we say in the business, comprehensively screwed. The news reporter was still talking, but I was not listening. I watched as my parents were placed separately into the back of 2 different official cars. The doors closed. A solid, final sound. The word liar was still on the side of my car. I looked at it, then at the scene unfolding. The truth was finally, terribly, publicly on my side. I put my car in gear and drove away. The courtroom was not a grand hall of justice. It was a functional beige box, smelling of industrial cleaner and nervous sweat. Courtroom 3B, preliminary hearings. It was the assembly line of the legal system, and we were the next components on the belt. I sat in the front row, directly behind the prosecution table. I was not there as a grieving daughter. I was there as the state's primary witness. To my left sat Sam Whitaker, his rumpled suit a familiar comfort. To my right sat Lydia Crane, my grandfather's attorney, her leather briefcase resting on her knees, radiating a dangerous, compressed energy. My parents were brought in. They were not in handcuffs, but in the ill-fitting state-issued blue jumpsuits that neutralized everyone. The arrogance was gone, the designer clothes, the social poise. It had all been stripped away. My father, Graham, looked grey, deflated, his eyes darting wildly around the room as if searching for an exit. My mother, Ruth, had reprised her role as the weeping martyr. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, her shoulders shaking, playing to the judge. They could not afford Barnett Lell. His $50,000 retainer had likely been frozen with the rest of their accounts. They were represented by a young, exhausted-looking public defender, who was flipping through a file that was clearly too thick for the time he'd had it. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Judge Rios, called the case. The People versus Holt and Holt. This is a hearing on preventative measures. The assistant district attorney, a sharp man named Peary, stood up. Your Honor, the state is petitioning to remand the defendants. We oppose bail in the strongest possible terms. This is not, as the defense will suggest, a simple family disagreement. This is a multi-decade, systematic financial predation scheme culminating in an active, documented attempt to flee the country. The public defender shot up. Objection. Predation scheme is inflammatory and prejudicial. It is also, Peary countered, precisely what the evidence demonstrates. Your Honor, the defendants liquidated their assets, including funds stolen from multiple victims, and transferred them to an offshore account at the Bay International Bank in St. Elmo. Furthermore, Peary continued, we have airline itineraries, one-way tickets to St. Elmo for this coming Friday. They were not planning a vacation, they were defecting. They have no ties to this community that they haven't already burned or stolen from. They are an undeniable and extreme flight risk. The public defender stood, doing his best to reframe the inferno as a kitchen fire. Your Honor, Mr. and Mrs. Holt are pillars of their community. They are retired. They have never been in trouble. This entire situation is a tragic misunderstanding fueled by their daughter, he gestured toward me, who is under severe emotional and financial distress. She has regrets about a family loan and is now lashing out. He was reading my mother's gaslight script, but the words sounded pathetic in the sterile room. She is hysterical, he concluded. This is a civil matter that belongs in family court, not a criminal one. I remained perfectly still. I did not look at him. I did not look at my parents. I stared at the wood grain on the back of Peary's chair before the judge could respond. Lydia Crane stood up. Her voice was not loud, but it silenced the room. Your Honor, Lydia Crane, appearing on behalf of Silas Brennan, principal of the Brennan Family Trust. Judge Rios looked over her glasses. Ms. Crane, this is not a probate hearing. What interest does Mr. Brennan have in this bail proceeding? A primary one, Lydia said. We believe the defendant's flight was not just motivated by the fraud perpetrated against Holly James, but by an attempted and far larger fraud against Mr. Brennan. We have reason to believe the defendants are not just a flight risk, but are an active danger to the assets of an elderly and vulnerable citizen. My mother's weeping stopped, a sharp, hiccuping sound. Lydia continued, 2 weeks ago, the defendant, Ruth Holt, used her familial access to bypass Mr. Brennan's staff. She presented him with a complex, updated codicil to his will. She informed him it was a simple administrative update. In reality, it was a complete alteration of the Brennan Trust's dispersal, redirecting the bulk of the inheritance, including assets meant for other family members, directly to herself, effective immediately upon signing. The public defender was on his feet. Your Honor, this is baseless. This is about a will. It has zero bearing on. It has, Lydia cut in, her voice like ice. Every bearing because Mr. Brennan, as you know, is in a wheelchair and has impaired motor function. He did not sign it of his own free will. She handed a file to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. This is a preliminary declaration from Dr. Mao Marcus Finch, a certified forensic handwriting expert. He reviewed the document this morning. His professional opinion is that Mr. Brennan's signature was not his own, but was applied with significant physical assistance, consistent with a guided hand. Furthermore, my client, his attorney of record, was not present. No independent counsel was present. It was an act of overt and calculated undue influence. My mother was staring at Lydia. The tears were gone. Her face was a mask of disbelief, then rage. She had been outmaneuvered. The judge read the declaration, her expression grim. Ms. Crane, these are explosive allegations, but they are for a civil or probate court to decide. I agree, Your Honor, Lydia said smoothly, but in the interim, the assets must be protected from the people who just tried to steal them and flee the country. We are filing a separate emergency petition to freeze the trust, but for the purposes of this hearing, it establishes a clear predatory pattern. The judge nodded slowly, her eyes fixed on my parents. The allegation is noted. It speaks directly to motive, and it is deeply, deeply disturbing. I am ordering, effective immediately, a temporary suspension of all changes, payouts, or alterations related to the Brennan Family Trust, pending a full expert analysis. The trust is frozen. My father let out a low groan. The ADA, Peary, stood back up, sensing blood in the water. He held up a new set of papers. And Your Honor, Peary continued, to Miss Crane's point about motive and pattern. We have the official transaction logs from the Bay accounts, subpoenaed just yesterday. The initial wire transfers to St. Elmo, the ones that funded this escape, did not come from a personal checking account. They were made 2 hours after the defendant Ruth Holt left Mr. Brennan's home, with that fraudulent document. She thought she had the money. She was already spending it. He placed another file on the stack. And when that wasn't enough, they stole their daughter's identity to finance the rest of the escape. The state's evidence is overwhelming. The intent is clear. The public defender looked defeated. Your Honor, my clients, they are willing to surrender their passports. Peary did not even let him finish. Their passports are irrelevant, Your Honor. They were fleeing to a non-extradition country. What's more, the federal component of this case is just beginning. The IRS Criminal Investigation Division is building its own separate case for tax evasion on more than a decade of laundered, undeclared income. At the mention of the IRS, my father seemed to shrink, caving in on himself. But my mother was different. The mask of the weeping victim was gone. The shock was gone. She slowly turned her head and looked, not at the judge, not at me, but at the prosecutor, Peary. Her eyes were not crying. They were bone dry. They were shining with a pure, black, bottomless hatred. A local news photographer, who had snuck into the back, raised his camera. The click of the shutter was the only sound in the room. He had the shot. The mask was off. I glanced over my shoulder. In the last row of the gallery, almost hidden in the shadows, sat my grandfather, Silas Brennan. He was in his wheelchair, as immobile as a statue. May, his housekeeper, sat beside him. He was just watching. He hadn't come for me. He hadn't come for Lydia. He had come to see this. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles white. Judge Rios looked at my parents. This is not a family misunderstanding. This is a breathtaking display of arrogance and criminality. The evidence for flight risk is absolute. The evidence of a danger to the community, particularly its elderly, is clear. Bail is denied. My mother's head snapped back to the judge. No, she shrieked. You can't. The defendants will be remanded to the county jail, the judge continued, her voice rising over my mother's sudden outburst. Tranquility, she barked, and a bailiff moved toward my mother. Furthermore, the judge said, I have reviewed the petition for the temporary restraining order filed by Mr. Mom and Mrs. Holt against their daughter. She looked at me. Given that they are now incarcerated, it seems moot. But the allegations within it, particularly in light of the state's evidence, are serious and contradictory. This court will convene a family witness hearing to address the claims in this TRO, and to hear further testimony tomorrow, 10 a.m. The gavel cracked. It was done. My mother was sobbing. But it was not the fake, delicate weeping of before. It was the harsh, ugly, gasping sobs of true loss. My father just looked numb. They were led out the side door toward processing. The press swarmed the aisle. Cameras were in my face. Microphones were shoved toward my mouth. Holly, what do you have to say to your parents? How long did you know? Are the IIS allegations true? I felt Sam's hand on my back. Not a word, Holly. We stay silent, he murmured. I looked straight ahead. I did not answer a single question. I let Lydia and Sam forge a path through the media scrum. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright, sharp sunlight. The legal, financial, and public battles were over. They had been won by Sam, by Tara, by Lydia, by the state. But the judge had just scheduled one more, the family witness hearing. They had wanted to silence me with that restraining order. They had wanted to paint me as the hysterical, lying daughter. Tomorrow, they would all be in that room, and I would be, for the first time, under oath. Tomorrow was for me. The courtroom was hotter today, or maybe it was just me. It was packed. The press, alerted by yesterday's drama, lined the back wall. Members of the Beacon Ridge Fellowship, their faces a mixture of confusion and betrayal, filled the gallery. Janet Peterson was there. Mr. Keene. Tara sat in the front row, her hand gripping mine until my knuckles ached. My parents were led in, back in their orange jumpsuits. The public defender looked like he had not slept. He looked like he had spent the night realizing the hysterical daughter narrative was not going to work. Judge Rios banged her gavel. We are here to address the petition for a temporary restraining order filed by Mr. and Mrs. Holt against Ms. Holly James. Yesterday, this court remanded the petitioners. Your Honor, we stand by the petition. My clients, Ruth and Graham Holt, have been the victims of a targeted harassment campaign by their estranged daughter. She has slandered them. She has fabricated this entire complex financial story to cover her own professional failures. She is unwell. My client, Mrs. Holt, wishes to speak. He called my mother to the stand. Ruth walked to the box. The transformation was breathtaking. The weeping, terrified victim from yesterday was gone. The cold, hateful mask was gone. Today, she was the martyr. She was calm, beatific, radiating a serene, misunderstood sorrow. She took the oath, her voice clear. Mrs. Holt, the defender began. Can you describe your relationship with your daughter? Ruth smiled, a sad, trembling smile. Holly has always been imaginative, so creative, but under stress, she struggles. She struggled with the pressure of her new business. She came to us asking for a loan, a significant one. We gave her what we could, but it was not enough for her. She looked at me, her eyes brimming with practiced tears. When we couldn't give her more, she turned. She began making these wild, terrible accusations. She said we stole from her. She is just not well. This restraining order. We didn't file it to punish her. We filed it to protect her from herself and to protect us from her fantasies. The lie was so perfect, so complete. It sucked the air from the room. She was going to burn me to the ground. The prosecutor, Peary, did not even stand to cross-examine. He simply said, The state has no questions for this witness. Your Honor, her testimony is perjury, and we have the receipts. My mother's smile faltered. She was dismissed. The public defender said, the defense rests on the petition, Your Honor. Judge Rios looked at the prosecution table. Mr. Peretti. Peary stood. Your Honor, the state does not wish to call Ms. James. She has been through enough. However, we do wish to call a rebuttal witness to address the defense's claims of fantasy and family loans. The state calls Silas Brennan. A murmur went through the crowd. My mother's head snapped toward the back of the courtroom. The double doors opened. May, the housekeeper, pushed my grandfather's wheelchair slowly down the center aisle. The sound of the wheels on the linoleum was the only sound in the room. He looked smaller than he had yesterday, his body frail under the tartan blanket. They navigated the small gate. The clerk moved a microphone down to wheelchair level. Sir, please raise your right hand. My grandfather raised a trembling hand. He took the oath, his voice thin but clear. Peary yielded his time. Your Honor, with the court's permission, Attorney Lydia Crane will conduct the questioning on behalf of Mr. Brennan, as his testimony directly relates to the Brennan Family Trust. The judge nodded. Proceed, Ms. Crane. Lydia stood. She was not a litigator, she was a surgeon. Mr. Brennan, you are the father of the petitioner, Ruth Holt. I am, he said. And you are the grandfather of Holly James. I am. You just heard your daughter testify that your granddaughter is unwell and creates fantasies. In your recent interactions with Ms. James, did you find her to be unstable or delusional? No, Silas said, his voice gaining a bit of strength. I found her to be the victim of a series of felonies. She came to me with evidence, bank statements, credit reports. I advised her. So you were aware of this family loan? It was not a loan, Silas snapped. It was theft, and it was not the first. My mother, from the defendant's table, whispered. Daddy, no, don't. Lydia ignored her. Mr. Brennan, yesterday this court heard testimony that your daughter, Mrs. Holt, attempted to have you sign a fraudulent update to your will. Is that correct? That is correct, Silas said, his eyes locking on Ruth. And Lydia continued, in response to that attempt, did you execute your own legal update to the Brennan Family Trust? I did. Lydia walked to the clerk, handing over a thick, sealed envelope. Your Honor, I present Appendix C of the Brennan Family Trust, signed and executed on February 3rd of this year. Mr. Brennan, is this your document? It is, he said. I signed it 2 days after my daughter tried to defraud me. My mother was shaking her head, whispering, it's not real. He's confused. He's sick. Lydia's voice was sharp, cutting through the room. Mr. Brennan, can you please read for the court Section 2, Paragraph A of this appendix? What provision did you make? Should any beneficiary of the Brennan Trust be found, in a court of law, or by forensic audit, to have committed an act of financial fraud, theft, or undue influence against another member of your family? My grandfather took the document. He looked down at it, his hands trembling. He began, his voice thin again. The light is poor. My mother let out a small, relieved sigh. He was just a confused, sick old man, just like she'd always said. Then Silas gripped the rubber wheels of his chair. He looked at the court clerk. Young man, move that microphone. Move it up, sir. Move it up, he commanded. Silas gripped the armrests. The leather groaned. He leaned forward. His entire frail body coiled with a sudden, terrible energy. He pushed. A bailiff moved, thinking he was falling. May gasped. My grandfather was rising. His legs, atrophied from 5 years of disuse, trembled violently. He was shaking from head to foot, but he was pushing. He was using the last of his strength, the reserves of a man who had built an empire, to stand up. He rose unsteadily, shakily, but he rose. He stood on his own 2 feet, gripping the witness box to steady himself. My mother made a sound, a low, gagging sound of pure disbelief. Silas Brennan stood at his full height, a ghost resurrected by sheer force of will. He looked down at his daughter. His voice, when he spoke, was not the thin reed of an invalid. It was the ironclad parade ground roar of a CEO. Section 2, Paragraph A, he boomed, his voice filling the courtroom. Stipulates forfeit, he read from the page. Any beneficiary, heir, or associated party found to have willfully and maliciously engaged in financial malfeasance against another family member shall forfeit immediately and irrevocably all claims, all rights, and all benefits of the Brennan Trust. Their inheritance is void. My father, Graham, slammed his hand on the defendant's table. This is insane. Order. Tranquility. The judge yelled, banging her gavel. Mr. Holt, Silas did not stop. He raised his voice over the chaos. Furthermore, all voided assets, properties, and funds shall be transferred in their entirety to the victimized party until such time as all financial, legal, and emotional damages are, in the victim's sole estimation, restored. Silence. A cold, absolute, static shock. Silence, a cold, absolute, static shock. My mother's mouth was open, but no sound was coming out. She stared at her father, who was still standing, trembling with the effort, a pillar of judgment. The public defender, desperate, jumped up. Your Honor, this is theatre. He's clearly not well. He's been in a wheelchair for 5 years. He's not competent. This document was obviously signed under duress. He was coerced by her. He pointed at me. Lydia Crane smiled. On the contrary, Your Honor, Mr. Brennan's stroke affected his mobility, not his mind. But since the defense has questioned his competency, we are happy to clarify. She produced a USB drive. This is a high-definition video recording, time-stamped from February 3rd. It shows Mr. Brennan, his primary care physician, a neurologist, and myself. It shows him explaining the forfeit clause in his own words and signing the document in full, lucid, and, as you can see, rather angry, command of all his faculties. He knew exactly what he was doing. The judge looked at the public defender. Do you have anything else? The man just slumped, defeated. Peary, the ADA, stood up. Your Honor, in light of this trust provision, the state must expand its motion. The defendants are not just a flight risk. They are now facing the loss of a multi-million-dollar inheritance, which transfers directly to their primary victim. Their motive to hide, destroy, or liquidate assets has just increased exponentially. We ask that the remand stand and that the asset freeze be expanded to every known property, vehicle, and storage unit in their name. So ordered, Judge Rios said. The petition for the temporary restraining order is dismissed with prejudice. The defendants are remanded to county jail to await trial. The gavel cracked. It was over. My parents did not look at me. They looked at Silas, who slowly, painfully lowered himself back into his chair. His energy spent. My mother looked at her father, the man she had dismissed as a frail old miser, and in her eyes was the terrible dawning realization that she had not just lost her freedom, she had lost everything. She had been, in the end, outsmarted. They were led out, my father, a grey ghost, my mother, for the first time, completely silent, her face pale and empty. I stood up. Sam put a hand on my shoulder. Tara was crying silently beside me. I walked past the bar to the prosecutor's evidence table. On it sat the clear plastic bags containing the faked invoices, the Bay logs, the St. Elmo flight plans. I reached into my bag and pulled out one last thing. I placed it on the table. It was the original receipt from Nordstrom, the one I had pulled from my mother's purse, the one for the men's chronograph. $4,320. I did not look at my parents as they were led away. I did not look at my grandfather. I just put the receipt on the pile. The first arrogant proof of their crime, the knot which had been tied with lies, theft, and gaslighting, was finally, clinically cut.